All praises, all praises. First and foremost, I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh by Hashem Mashiach, Yahweh Shai, through the world and cause Jesus Christ, man. I'm Debaka Ward, and I got my brother.
Mute this thing right quick.
He's
It's your
muted.
boy Zamyar.
Zamyar, man. And we're back at it with another lesson, man. And the brother has a great lesson for you. It's called In the Midst of Israel, man. So I'm going to go ahead and let him get to it.
Khan. I was just looking back at all our lessons for the past year or so, because we're coming up on about a full year of us doing this now. And I was looking back, and the consistent thing for me, or theme for me, is that, or just in the Israelite community in general, is that the people that have a problem with Israel, and the people who has a problem with this community that we call the Israelite community, not the Black Hebrew Israelite community, but the Hebrew Israelite community, is that they have an issue with things like salvation being only for Israel, or saying things like Christ is coming just for, But if you understood that at the crux of this, right, at the bottom of this, at the bare essence of this situation, it's about the Most High claiming these things. It's about the Most High deciding and claiming that he was in the midst of Israel and none else, right? If you understand that concept, then some of these other things can't be such a problem. I mean, they can, right? If you allow them to be, but if you understand that he chose Israel, he chose to dwell in Israel, he chose them as his people, he chose to be in the midst of Israel and none else, then some of these other things shouldn't be such a sore spot with people, right? Even when you look at, it's like people don't understand like why the Most High sent Moses to save and fight for one people. It's because he's in the midst of those people, or Samson, or Zerubbabel, or David, or the Maccabees, right? Or anyone else, or even to understand that Christ is coming to do the same thing Moses did, right? We did that lesson a couple months ago. Prophet like unto Moses, right? This is all a consistent thing. So for you to have a problem with this, it makes no sense. If you ask me, if you just read this book, this theme is consistent and it's all over the book. Again, you shouldn't have a problem when you see Israelites teaching things like salvation is only for Israel. As far as the biblical definition that we talked about last week, right? The biblical definition being saved out of the hand of your enemies and all them, who hate you. That's the biblical definition. I'm not talking about the Oxford definition, which is basically to be saved from danger or peril. Yes, that can be applied to anyone, right? But when you talk about the biblical definition, being saved out of the hand of your enemy, that's only applicable to one people, and that one people is the same people that the whole book is about, right? So it all starts with that basic, misconception or misunderstanding that the God of the Bible, right, the God of Israel, as he calls himself, right, is a God of any other people besides the Israelites. If you read this book with that understanding, all these other messages can't be misconstrued, right? It's just like we talk about, the New Testament in general. If you start the back of the book, then yes, you're going to be confused. But if you start the beginning, right, the Old Testament, then when you get to the New Testament, you can't confuse things. It's the same with this concept. If you start to read this book and understand that, the whole matter is that he is the God of Israel, then everything else will make perfect sense to you, and you can't misconstrue as many things as I feel like a lot of Christians seem to misconstrue, right? And again, I said this last week. For me, I'm good on the whole Christian bashing. It's not just about that. Like, I don't want the classes that we do to be about anything that somebody can view as negative, because it's not about that. It's not even about them. It's about our people understanding who we are, right? So if we got to eliminate you feeling funny about any other topic, cool. I ain't got no problem with that, because it's about you understand this book is about you, right? It's about your relationship with your God and his relationship with his people as a whole, and the things that are befalling us because of our disobedience and the way that we get out of that condition. That's what this book is about. That's what we as Israelites go out to try to teach our people week after week, right? Everything else really don't matter to me, right? So again, even you look at the fact that he only chose Israel, people say, yeah, but God isn't a respecter of persons, right? Which is true, right? But the one group of people that he did say he respected was Israel, right? This is Exodus 22.
Hold on, you went on mute, bro.
You good?
Yeah, you good now.
Okay. So yeah, like I said, no, of course it's true that God is not a respecter of persons, right? I get that 100,000%, right? But there was a people he did say he respected, right? And this is Exodus 2:25, and it says, "And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them." Right. So though he isn't a respecter of persons, there was one group of people on the face of the earth that he said he had respect unto, and that's Israel, right? That's him being in the midst of Israel, right? So we just take the Lord at his word, right? When he says, he's in the midst of Israel, then everything else that Israelites teach makes perfect sense. Like it's like when a man says, like a man, he said, "Oh yeah, all I care about is my kids," right? And every action you see him do proves that, right? He can't wait to be there for his kids. He had every game, he had every cheerleading competition, and I'm speaking of my own experience, right? Because my daughter got all these competitions every week. I'm there, my kids there. So it's like you see a man say, "Hey, all I care about is my kids," and every one of his actions proves that, right? He makes sure that that they're happy. He makes sure that they're disciplined. He makes sure that he attends the things that they need him to attend and supports them in the ways that they need to be. So again, it's the same thing with the Most High, right? With him saying he's in the midst of this one people, and he only chose this one people, then you have to understand when you look at every other action that he does through that lens, that it makes more sense than you give it credit, right? It makes more sense that salvation is only for this people who he said he was in the midst of, right? It makes more sense that these saviors that we talk about throughout the Bible only come to deal with that one people and only come to save and rescue that one people through the spirit and power of the Most High, right? If you understand that one basic fact that he's in the midst of Israel, everything else is easier to swallow, right? Pause. Yeah, but again, it just means, when you look at it that way, then nothing seems out of character for the Most High, right? This is Deuteronomy 32:8, right? I'm gonna go to 9. It says, "When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel." Right? Not the number of the children of the world or some other nation, but the number of the children of Israel, right? It's all about this one people. Sorry, it just is, right? Verse 9 says, for the Lord's portion is his people. Verse 10, it says Jacob is the lot of his inheritance, right? Verse 10 says, "He found him in a desert land and in the waste howling wilderness. He led him about. He instructed him. He kept him as the apple of his eye," right? So even when you look at that phraseology, apple of his eye, right? It's only used when talking about Israel. You only see it 2 or 3 times in the Bible in general, but every time it's talking about the way he feels about Israel, not about the way he feels about the whole world, right? So again, understand that he's in the midst of Israel. If you understand it as a basic just fact, then everything else, when you look at it through that lens, it makes perfect sense. And he's never out of character if you understand that. Like when you don't understand that, then there's lots of things you can take and misconstrue, and it seems like God is out of character. But he's not if you understand that fact, right? Um, um, so again, right, being in the midst of Israel, we understand that this is how God describes himself, right? And his relationship with his people, then how can we not understand that, all the other things that only pertain to Israel, right? It's like sometimes we know people who are, like straight up and matter of fact type people, right? And then they do something that's totally in line with what you believe of them, right? Then it's like you still find a way to be disappointed with them. And that's crazy. Like my mom is kind of like that. My mom is like a very matter of fact person. And that's how she is. That's how she talks. And she stands on her word 9 times out of 10. That's just how she is. She always been like that. So she's never out of character when she does something that is a matter of fact, that is right in line with that I already know of her. It's the same thing with the Most High. If you understand this very fact, then everything else lines up perfectly, right? So again, he told us that he's in the midst of Israel, right? And his words and his actions, throughout the Bible, they overwhelmingly prove that he's in the midst of Israel, right? And again, to have an issue with that is for you to not understand who he said he was, it's not who we say he is, it's who he said he was, right? And that's kind of crazy, right? This is Wisdom of Solomon 18:7. It says, "So of thy people was accepted both the salvation of the righteous and destruction of the enemies," right? It says, for wherewith thou didst punish our adversaries, by the same thou didst glorify us whom thou hast called, right? So we look at these two verses in Wisdom of Solomon, and they are so consistent with what God said he is, right? Which is in the midst of Israel. We did a lesson a few months back about our salvation coinciding with the destruction of our enemies. That's what these verses right here is talking about, right? What did God do to the Babylonians for what they did to his people? He punished them. What did he do to the Assyrians for what they did to his people? He punished them, right? The Egyptians, he punished them. The Philistines, he punished, right? And on, right? So that's what these verses in Wisdom of Solomon 18:7 is talking about, right? What he did to all these people for what they did to his people, right? So then when you look at it at the state that we're in right now, you have to ask that question. What is he going to do to these people whose hands we are still found in, right? Who are still guilty of afflicting his people to this very day? What is he going to do to them? He's going to do to them the same thing he did to everybody else. These are things that some people don't want to hear. It's just the facts, right? The same way he didn't have any mercy on the Egyptians for what they did, right? Because let's be real, right? Him killing the firstborn of Egypt, I've said this on this class many times, that there's nothing worse you could do to a man than take his kids. Nothing. There's nothing worse you could do to me than do something to my kids, right? I'd rather you do whatever you want to do to me than do something to my kids, man. And when you look at how he did Egypt, right, taking their firstborn, it don't get no worse than that. You know what I'm saying? So again, why did he do that to them? For what they did to his people. So when you look at these people, like I said, whose hands we still found into this day, they got a hell of a judgment coming, right? And them and many other nations, but you can't exclude this nation as well, right? And it's all because what? Because he's in the midst of Israel, right? So this is Joel 2:27, and this is one of our favorites when you talk about this subject, right? It says, "And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel," right? That's the whole purpose of this lesson, right? "And ye shall know that I am in the midst of Israel, and that I am the Lord your God, and none else." Right? "And my people shall never be ashamed," right? So when you look at it from that standpoint, he said he's in the midst of Israel and none else. Like that in itself, to me, nothing else needs to be said, right? Because it disproves that he's the God of the whole world. We're not saying he's not the God of all creation, because he is. But is he the God who chooses to dwell in every nation that he's created? No, he's not. Is he the God who took every nation as his people? No, he's not. He took one nation as his people, just like, and it's like we talk about too. He's got his favorite bird, his favorite cattle, his favorite land, his favorite everything, his favorite people. He's chosen who he wants as his people, right? It was a couple things I wanted to bring up. If I go to this other scripture, Right. So this is Amos 3:1. And I'm gonna do this in the G&T, right? And it says, "People of Israel, listen to this message which the Lord has spoken about you, the entire nation that he brought out of Egypt. Of all the nations on earth, you are the only one." So he just said what? He's in the midst of Israel, and he is their God and none else. Then it says what? "Of all the nations, you are the only one I have known and cared for." These things line up perfectly with understanding that basic fact from the beginning, that he's only in the midst of Israel. Then when you read verses like Amos 3:1 and 2, they make perfect sense because they line right up with what he said about himself and about the people that he chose for himself, right? I'm read it again. It says, "People of Israel, listen to this message which the Lord has spoken about you, the entire nation that he brought out of Egypt. Of all the nations on earth, you are the only one I have known and cared for. That is what makes your sins so terrible. And that is why I must punish you for them." And that basically sums up everything that we talk about, right? We are not in this condition because God hates us. We're in this condition because he loves us. We are in this condition because our sins are even worse to him because he chose us. Our sins are even worse to him because he said he only chose to dwell in the midst of us. So it makes us look even worse to the nations, right? That's why the Bible talks about the commandments being our wisdom in the sight of the nations, right? Because we look like a smart, intelligent, God-fearing, God-loving people when we do the things that he commanded us to do. And we look like shit, forgive my French, right? When we do the opposite. And that's what he's saying right here, right? "Of all the nations on earth, you are the only one I have known and cared for. That is what makes your sins so terrible. And that is why I must punish you for them," right? This is 2 Samuel 7:23 and the G&T also, right? And it says, "There is no other nation on earth like Israel," right? And this is what we try to teach our people too. And again, this concept lines up with everything we say week after week. We the salt of the earth, right? We are God's favorite people. We are God's chosen people. We are made just a little bit better in certain areas than other people. That's just what God said, right? It's not about us, wanting to shine on the other. It's not about that. This is what God said, right? So again, this concept in this verse is something that lines right up with who God says He is in the midst of Israel, the God of Israel, and none else, right? It says again, there is no other nation on earth like Israel, whom you rescued from slavery to make them your own people. The great and wonderful things you did for them have spread your fame throughout the world, right? And that's what people understand, right? Y'all love God based on what God did for us, right? Y'all who will fear us in the end and who have feared us in the past, you feared us because you knew that our God would act on our behalf. You knew that our God would empower us in a way that no other God empowered any other nation, right? This is all lining up with Him being in the midst of Israel where He said He was at, right? This is all lining up with Him loving us and none else, and Him being our God and none else, right? That's why you see things like this, right? It says, the great and wonderful things you did for them have spread your fame throughout the world. So the reason y'all look up to our God is because of the things He did for us. And then you try to take it and act like, He did these things for you. No, He did these things for us. And it's the reason why we're in this position once again. Why? Because like it says in Amos 3:1, this is what makes our sins so terrible. Because he chose us, He blessed us, He gave us that little bit more. He made us the salt of the earth. He gave us, a little bit more strength and power and wisdom than other nations. So it makes us look even worse, right? But again, right? So it says, the great and wonderful things you did for them have spread your fame throughout the world. You drove out other nations and their gods as your people advanced. The people whom you set free from Egypt to be your own. You have made Israel your own people forever, and you, Lord, have become their God. And we brought this up before too, how the Bible talks about Him ransoming other nations for us, right? That's a God who loves His people. The fact that He said He's willing to give other nations and their lives for yours, right? We can't like look past that, because when you look past that, this is what allows you to misconstrue so many other facts and tenets and concepts about the Bible, right? You can't look past that fact, right? This is Psalms 147:19. Everybody knows this, right? It says, God, matter of fact, let's do this in the CEV, right?
Also, like and share the video, man. Sister Tanya, I appreciate the donation for water.
All praise. So this is Psalms 147:19 in the CEV. And it says, God gave His laws and teachings to the descendants of Jacob, the nation of Israel, but He has not given His laws to any other nation. Shout praises to the Lord, right? The
Praise the Lord.
Huh?
Praise the Lord.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing about it. Like, when you think about the things that make this book so incredible, like the commandments, like the wisdom that's in the commandments, right? Like the power that comes from the people who's supposed to keep these commandments, keeping these commandments, then you understand, like, it's amazing that anybody can misconstrue anything, because like I said, the power that comes with those teachings and those commandments and that wisdom, it was only given to one people. And the reason you love our God so much is because of what our God did for us and the things that He gave to us, like these laws, like the wisdom inside of these laws, like the teachings of our own, of our cultures and our just our nation's, ideologies and theologies and just cultures in general. Y'all love these things, but they was only given to one people. Like, we understand why you love it, because that's why we love it. It's incredible, right? But it was still only given to one people, right? So again, that's kind of the whole gist of the lesson, is that if you understand that He's in the midst of Israel, then things like who salvation is for, it can't throw you off. Things like who Christ is coming to save, it can't throw you off. But this is what you have to understand as a Gentile, right? He's coming to save one people out of the hand of the people that hate Him, right? But that does not mean that we will be the only people in the kingdom. Like we say every week, somebody got to build the kingdom. It's just what it is, right? Somebody's got to build the kingdom. And like I said, if I was a descendant of the people who have done some of the heinous things that some of the nations, have done, I would be happy just to have a seat in that kingdom, period. Right? And again, what you have to understand is that your seat in our kingdom is going to be way better than your seat in your own kingdom, because we're going to rule in righteousness. I say this all the time too. We have no desire to do some of the debaucherous things to y'all that y'all have done to us. And that's what white guilt is all about, to be honest with you. And this ain't even just about the white man, but I'm just saying that's what white guilt is all about. Is that if you lose control, if you give up the power that you think that you have, what are these people going to do to you that you did, all these horrible things to?
Yeah,
that's what white guilt is all about.
They think we're going to do abominable stuff to them, man. Nobody on. I got a precept, man, just to let me back on your point, right? This is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 5, verse 27 in the GNT, and it says, "From all the nations of the world, you have chosen this one nation to be your own, and you gave its law, and you gave its people your law, which is honored by people everywhere."
And that's what we're talking about, right? Y'all love it and y'all want to grab hold to it, but it still wasn't given to you. And that's honored by people everywhere, but it was only given to one people. And that's what we're talking about. And these people who was given to is the people who God claimed that he is in the midst of. So again, who are we to make him to be something different than he told you himself that he was? He said he's the God in the midst of this one people. He said he's the God of these people and none else. And that these people should never be ashamed. Right? These are not our words. And if you want to say we twisting it, come on, join in and show us how we twisting it. You break these verses down. And that's the thing about Israelites that I do love, right? Is that if you swear we twisting it so bad, we have no problem with reading. Hey, you read the verse and you tell me what it means.
Yeah, you tell me what it means. Don't tell me what it ain't. Tell me what it means.
Right, exactly. And we see that all the time. Like, soon we say, hey, you said I don't have to interpret anything. You interpret it. Right? Some of these verses are beyond being interpreted in the first place. They just plain as day. They plain on tables, as the scripture says. It's that simple to understand them. But if you think we're doing something wrong, you come on and you break it down correctly. I ain't got no problem with it because I'm always willing to learn, and that's a fact, right? So this is Deuteronomy 10 and 15. I'm gonna do this one I'm gonna do two of these in the CV too, right? It says, "Yet the Lord your ancestors." Yet the Lord loved your ancestors and wanted them to belong to him. It says, so he chose them and their descendants rather than any other nation. And today you are still his people. So right there, that's showing you right there. And it's debunking that thinking of that replacement theology or that supersessionism, right? His people have not been replaced. It says right here again, right? Yet the Lord loved your ancestors and wanted them to belong to him. So he chose them and their descendants rather than any other nation. And today you are still his people, right? That's what we got to understand. No one is replacing Israel, right? And since no one is replacing Israel, that means the same people who all these things was written about, are the same people who he dwells with today, the same people who he's in the midst of today. Right. And again, just because we're going through certain things, it's not because we're not his people. It's because we are his people. It's because we make him look crazy for choosing us. That's what it's all about. That's what Amos 3:1 and 2 Samuel was talking about, right? We make him look crazy for choosing us. So that's why we're in the position that we're in. That's why we go through the things that we go through, right? This is Deuteronomy 4 and 5. And the CEV as well, right? It says, no other nation has laws that are as fair as the ones the Lord my God told me to give you, right? If you faithfully obey them, when you enter the land, you will show other nations how wise you are. This is what we were just talking about, right? Just a different translation, right? You will show other nations how wise you are. In fact, everyone that hears about your laws will say that great nation certainly is wise, right? And what makes us greater than other nations? We have a God who is close to us and answers our prayers. That's what the other nations want to grab a hold of, is that they know that when it comes to them Israelites, right? When it comes to those so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, they God gonna show up for them. All they got to do is what they supposed to do, and they God gonna have their back 1,000%. That's what, even when we bring up Judith all the time, one of our favorite scriptures in Judith. But it's the fact that the nations always understood that. This is not a new concept. The nations always understood that and feared that. Them fearing the Israelites was because they feared the Israelites' God. They feared how the Israelites' God would empower them to defeat them. This is what it's all about, right? This is just more, in line with him being in the midst of Israel. And this is why Go ahead.
I got the scripture you talking about.
Bet.
All right, this is the book of Judah, chapter 5, verse 20. Now, therefore, my Lord and governor, if there be any error against this people, and they have sinned against their God, let us consider that this shall be their ruin. And let us go up, and we shall overcome them. But if there be no iniquity in their nation, let my Lord now pass by, lest their Lord defend them, and their God be for them, and we become a reproach before all the world.
And that's what we're talking about. Like I said, it's not a new concept, right? In antiquity, the other nations understood that if you mess with these people, especially if you mess with people when they right with their God, like they might even defend you when they not right with their God, but when they right with their God, they're definitely going to defeat you, and you have no chance, right? So this is something that the other nations understood, and they feared us for that because they understood our relationship with our God, and when we were right with our God, they understood what that meant for them, and it didn't mean nothing good, right? So again, if we understand that God is in the midst of Israel, then none of these things seem like foreign concepts. Nothing God can do, right? Like it's some people I know so well that it's nothing that they do that surprises me. Right? Even when you look at somebody like Kanye, right? Nothing Kanye do surprise me at this point because he has proven to be this so-called unpredictable entity, right? So there's nothing he can do that I'm like, damn, Kanye. No, I was like, hey, well, yeah, what you expect? That's Kanye. Or even somebody like Trump. It's like, damn, that's what Trump do, right? So it's the same thing with the Most High God. If you look at him through the lens of understanding he's in the midst of Israel and he's their God and none else, then there's nothing else in his book that really should surprise you. People get surprised and taken aback, as they say, because you don't look at the Bible with that one vital understanding that he's in the God of this people. So everything he does for this people, why should it surprise you?
Right? I got a precept.
Good.
So this is Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19. This is Moses talking to the children of Israel after they accept the covenant, right? And he said, I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Right. Therefore choose life that both thou and thy seed may live.
Come on, man. Like that's the thing about it. Like we understand through our lens, it's a choice, right? But if you understand, the real understanding on free will is not as much of a choice as you think, but through our lens, it's a choice. And what he say, your choice is to choose life or death, and you do that by what? Choosing the law or choosing not to do the law. That's what it's actually talking about. So the same thing he talks about that he gave to us and only us, the same reason why these other nations look at us with envy and look at us as a wisdomful and a great people is because of these laws, statutes, and commandments, right? And one thing I would say if I was, with the other nations, right, is that, or I ain't gonna say I was, but I would look at it this way, right? You get into the kingdom without having to do a percentage of what we have to do, even though you're getting there in subjection to us, right? But you don't have to do a percentage of what we got to do because it wasn't given to you. That's why we tell people every week, hey, enjoy your kingdom. This is your kingdom right here, right now. Whatever you want to do in your kingdom, have at it, right? So that means that you get to make it into our kingdom in a lesser position, but you still get to get there without doing half of what we got to do to get there, right? So you shouldn't be so envious of us. Appreciate your own position right now. Appreciate your own kingdom right now. Appreciate, where you are and understand that regardless, your people's going to make it into the kingdom as well. It's just going to be a different position. It is what it is, right?
Yeah, that's because a lot of these people have a position that we don't believe what Christians believe. You die and you get the kingdom of heaven.
Exactly.
No, kingdom of heaven is going to be right here on earth.
Right. And it was crazy. I believed that so much in my life. And it wasn't until I found the truth that I had to really ask myself, yeah, right. Like, what sense do that make? What sense does it make for me to have to do all this in this body on this earth, right? And all the trials and tribulations that come with that to be able to go somehow and enjoy it in a way where I don't even have limbs and I don't have, I'm just a spirit. I'm just in the cloud. It makes no sense, right? It makes no sense to put in that kind of work to have that kind of reward, right? Makes no sense, right?
Just a quick precept to prove that, right? So this is the book of Revelation chapter 5, verse 10. And thou hast made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth.
Facts. And that's what it's about. That's what the whole Lord's Prayer is about, right? On earth as it is in heaven, right? Yep. And so that means, again, the work that we got to go through, the position that we're in, even right now, because of our own disobedience. To come up out of that, we got to put that work in and keep this law and have faith. And that's why I say every week, increase thy faith. Because and the reason I throw that in there so much is because we don't understand that, once you learn you're in the truth, it don't just stop there. You got to keep going. You got to keep studying. You got to keep immersing yourself in the word. And so that's how you increase your faith, right? The hearing of the word, right? So that's why I throw that in there so often, because often it seems like some people don't understand that it's more to this whole walk than just knowing you're an Israelite. It takes more than that, right? You got to increase that faith, and you do that through the putting in the work and the hearing of the word and those types of things, right?
Because let me just one part. If God promised Abraham from Abraham's seed that the land from the Euphrates to the Nile River will be his land, why do people believe you die and get heaven?
Right. You know what I'm saying? It makes no, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's so many things about the way we're taught this Bible that really don't make sense if you just read it, which is why we implore people every week. And that's why the Bible says, blessed is he who readeth, right? Yeah. You have to read this book to understand. And most of the stuff we've been taught, I would say a good 90%. There's a few things that, can stand up, right? To the test of certain doctrines, right? But about 90% of what we've been taught in the church and just growing up is not in this book. And it's funny because I had these conversations with my mom sometimes, and it's like, certain things she believes. I'm like, Mom, it's just not in the book. And she's gotten to the point where she's like, for real? Like, at first she used to fight back so hard, but now she done got to the point. She's like, for real? Well, just show me what it say then. You know what I'm saying? But when I first got in this truth, she didn't want to hear none of that. It was, hey, what I've been taught is law, and that it is what it is. That Christian dogma was so embedded, that she didn't want to hear, even if I could prove point after point after point, she didn't really want to hear it. But now it's gotten to the point where now she wants to hear it and she's open to it, right? But again, I don't mean to get sidetracked, but again,
one more point. I just got one more scripture, right? So this is the book of Mark, chapter 12, verse 27. And this is our Lord and Savior, Yahushua, who the word only calls Jesus Christ. Right. He is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living. Ye therefore greatly error. He's the God of the living. You don't die and get heaven. You live and get heaven.
Right. It makes no sense. But again, so yeah. This is 2 Maccabees 1:27. I'm gonna go to 28, right? It says, gather those together that are scattered from us, right? Deliver them that serve among the heathen. See, and this is what people understand when you talk about that great commission. This right here is all it's about. 2 Maccabees 1:27 through 28 is all the Great Commission is about, right? Gather those together that are scattered from us. Deliver them that serve among the heathen. That's what the Great Commission is about, is delivering them that serve among the heathen, that have been scattered, right? Dispersed. That's all the Great Commission is about. It's not actually about go preach and teach the whole world. It's teach your people amongst these other nations. That's what 2 Maccabees 1:27 is talking about, and that's what the Great Commission is talking about, right? It says, look upon them that are dispersed. Salaki, look upon them that are despised and abhorred, and let the heathen know that thou art our God, right? Punish them that oppress us, and with pride do us wrong, right? Again, and let the heathen know that thou art our God. What? In the midst of Israel. That's every verse I'm gonna bring out is because it stamps in the midst of Israel, right? But I'm gonna read one more time, right? It says, gather those together that are scattered from us, deliver them that serve among the heathen, look upon them that are despised and abhorred, and let the heathen know that thou art our God. Punish them that oppress us, and with pride do us wrong. Like I just said in the beginning of this lesson. What happened to Egypt? What happened to the Egyptians? What happened to the Syrians? What happened to the Babylonians? What happened to even all these other nations who may not be as famous as those captivities? Because we've been in so many captivities, you can't keep count damn near, right? But what happens to each one of these people who oppress God's people and who wrong God's people? They were punished, right? That's what he look in this verse. He's literally asking for that. He says, punish them that oppress us, and with pride do us wrong, right? And we talk about that all the time. The pride of our oppressors, the pride of the rulership of this world, right? He's saying right there, punish them for those things, right? The same way the Egyptians was punished, and the Babylonians and the Syrians and so on, right? That's what it's talking about, right? Deuteronomy 4:20 says, but the Lord have taken you and brought you forth out of the iron furnace, even out of Egypt, to be unto him a people of inheritance, as ye are this day. And again, it's another verse that's saying, just like you were then, you are still that this very day, right? Again, it says, but the Lord have taken you and brought you forth of the iron furnace, even out of Egypt, to be unto him a people of inheritance, as ye are this day, right? This is Deuteronomy 4:37. And it's funny because even when I was putting this lesson together, it's so much in Deuteronomy that like we go to Deuteronomy a lot. We deal with the curse and that's fine, right? But there's so many things in Deuteronomy, period, that just show you that he still, the curse and all those things, yeah, okay, great. But it shows you throughout this book how much he's about this one people, right? All through Deuteronomy, you see how much he chose this one people, how much he valued this one people, and how much all he wants this one people to do is come back to these laws that he set before them so he could treat them the way he desired to treat them from the very beginning. That's what so much of Deuteronomy is about as well, right? Deuteronomy 7:6, we bring this out all the time, right? It says, for thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God, the Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. The Lord did not set his love upon you, nor choose you because ye were more in number than any people, for ye were the fewest of all people. But because the Lord loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, hath the Lord brought you with a mighty hand and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, right? So this shows again that we are a what? A holy, which just means set apart, right? Valued, love people from our God. And again, it just backs up the concept of this whole lesson. He's in the midst of Israel. If you understand that, and all this love and all these things that he desires to have on us and to us and for us, it makes perfect sense if you just understand that he's the God of us and none else, right? Deuteronomy 4:2 says, 14:2 says, for thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God, and the Lord has chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself above all the nations that are upon the earth, right? This is 1 Peter 2:9. We bring this out all the time because people like to say, well, yeah, God's people. Yeah, okay, we understand God's people, but it is talking about a race of people. It is talking about a nationality and ethnicity. It's not just talking about any believer, right? 1 Peter 2:9, and the G&T makes that clear, right? It says, but you are the chosen race, right? Right? Not the chosen, mixed multitude of God's people, right? You are the chosen race, right? The king's priests, the holy what? Nation. God's own what? People, right? Chosen to proclaim the wonderful acts of God who called you out of darkness into his own marvelous light, right? So we understand, race actually means nationality, right? So that's what this is talking about. It is talking about a race of people. It's not talking about God's people in the sense of, hey, everybody attends this church and we all believe the same, Christian dogma or Christian doctrine, whatever it is, and now we're all God's people. No, it's talking about a literal nationality, a literal ethnicity, a literal race, right? Race actually means nationality, right?
Yeah, because race go back to the word seed. Your seed, it's your seed.
Right.
So right there, that's an actual cut of Christianity because Christian is not a race of people. But the Israelites is a race of people, right?
Right. And even when you talk about having power over the nations, that's how you understand what is it saying? It's not saying this mixed body of people will have power over all their own people. It's saying this nation of people will have power over the other nations. That's what it's talking about, right? When you understand that he's in the midst of Israel, right, then these concepts ain't, to me, they're just way harder to flub up. You know what I'm saying? This is Sirach 17:17. It says, for in the division of the nations of the whole earth, he set a ruler over every people, but Israel is the Lord's portion. It's just like Deuteronomy 32:8. It's basically saying the same thing, that we are the lot of his inheritance, right? And that's another thing too, is that some of those concepts that I see in Deuteronomy, it's not the only place. It's like people like to say that the Israelites' faith hangs all in Deuteronomy 28. I just showed you the same thing written in a whole nother book, right? In a whole nother books that was taken out of the Bible at that, but in a whole nother place, and it's basically saying the exact same thing, right? Sirach 17:17. For in the division of the nations of the whole earth, he set a ruler over every people, but Israel is the Lord's portion. right? So it's telling you when he separated us, just like he said, Deuteronomy 32:8, he separated us. He gave everybody their own God, their own deity, right? There's an entity over every nation on the earth, but he chose us as his own. That's why he says that he's in the midst of Israel and he's our God and none else. Again, never debating or trying to, we don't disagree that he's the God of all creation. That's an absolute fact. But he chose who he would govern and who he would set himself in the midst of, right? And that's Israel, right?
And I know this might be hard for y'all to understand, but he also gave those other nations gods too.
Exactly.
So when you follow these other people's religion, they have a other deity or another God to ascribe to him by God. That's why he's called the Most High God. He's the God of gods.
And that's what makes it idolatry. And that's what makes it spiritual fornication, right?
There you go.
It's because there is a God. Oh, when you say, hey, I want to go deal with this East Indian religion, there's a God involved in it. When I want to go deal with this Chinese religion, there's a God involved.
Yeah, come on.
Right? So that's why it's idolatry. Couple more, and let me see. I got a bunch down for this lesson, but let me see which ones will probably hit the best. Okay, simple one, right? Isaiah 41:8, and I'm gonna do Isaiah 44, right? But thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob, whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham, my friend, right? Isaiah 44:1. Yet now hear, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen, right? Ezekiel 36:8. Right? It says, but ye, O mountains of Israel, ye shall shoot forth your branches and yield your fruit to my people of Israel, for they are at hand to come. For behold, I am for you, and I will turn unto you, and ye shall be tilled and sown, right? So again, like it's in so many books of the Bible, and I really could go on for days. And I mean, I'm gonna still hit a few more, but it's just one of those things where sometimes I feel like it gets to the point where it's overkill. If you don't understand a lesson as blatant as this, then you just choose not to. And if you don't understand it, if you look at this book through that lens of he's in the midst of Israel, you shouldn't really be offended by any other thing in here because he told you who he's about. He told you who he's about. He told you who he's got these high hopes and dreams for. And it's the same people throughout the whole book. It don't change midway through. It don't change a quarter of the way through. It's the same people throughout the whole book. And if you understand that, it's harder to have an issue with some of the things that he says will befall, the world in general in the end times, because it lines right up with who he said he was at the very top of the book. And he was in the midst of those same people, and those are the same people who are going to receive some of those things that some of you people have an issue with. But again, like I've been hearing since I first got in the truth, you don't have an issue with me. You don't have an issue with the Bible. You got an issue with the Most High.
There you go.
Because it's all over the book. So take it up with him, right? This is Ezekiel. Matter of fact, this is Wisdom of Solomon 4:15 in the GNT. It says, God is kind and merciful to his own people. He protects those whom he has chosen. Like, it just don't get no clearer. And you know what I mean? And I love the Bible because to me, when you come into this book without a preconceived notion, without an axe to grind on this way or this direction or that direction, then it's very clear what you're reading. Right? If you come into this Bible without, hey, I'm gonna disprove this or I'm gonna prove that, and just come in open, it's gonna prove to you itself what it's about. It's gonna prove to you itself what it's talking about and who it's talking about, and who those people are. And again, like I say all the time, it's about those people and their relationship with their God. That's all this book is about. You know what I mean? It's a couple more things I wanted to get though. Let me see. Okay, right. So let's look at that word called, right? Because we talked about this all the time too, right? It's when you think of God only called Israel, right? When you look at that word called, right? It's Strong's H7121, and the word is quara, right? And it says to call out, to recite, read, cry out, proclaim, right? To utter a loud sound, to call unto, right? Cry for help, right? Call with name of God, right? So we understand that who God said he surnamed and who he said his name, who he is in the midst of, right? These are the people who he called, right? It also says what? To summon, right? These are the people who he called, who he summoned to himself. The same people who he said he's in the midst of are the people who he summoned to himself. To invite, these are the same people he's in the midst of, are the same people he invited, right? To call for, right? It says to commission, right? Like I just said about the Great Commission, right? These are the people who the Great Commission is going to. Like it says in the word call. Part of the definition is to commission, to appoint, to call, to endow, to give a name to, like all the things that the Bible says he did to Israel, right? So when you look at things like who he called, and and we go into this all the time when you deal with Romans 8:28, those who he called is also who he justified, who he glorified, right? It tells you right here who he called, the same people who he commissioned, the same people who he appointed, the same people who he called unto himself, the same people who cried for help and called out to him. This is the people who he called, and it's Israel. When you read his book, it's Israel, right? This is Romans 9:7, right? It says, neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be what? Called, right? We just told you who the called are, right? It says, that is they which are the children of the flesh. These are not the children of God, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed. Like he just said about seed. What did he just say? Race, right? Race goes back to seed. It's telling you right now who the people who are counted for the seed are. It's those who descend out of Isaac, and that's through Jacob, right? So even when you break things down to that level of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, it still gets a little more finite through each person, right? Abraham gets a little more defined once you get to Isaac, and it gets even more defined once you get to Jacob. And then once you get to Jacob's 12 sons, it's even more defined, right? But this is the seed. This is the race, right? This is the people Israel. This is the people who he said he's in the midst of, right? So that's kind of what I have for the lesson. Of course, I could do some more. I always got a few more things in the clip, but I don't like to beat a dead horse, right? Again, if you read this book with the understanding that he's in the midst of Israel, then there's no way that anything else should be offensive to you, and anything else should make God seem out of character. If you read it with that understanding, then everything you see happening in this book is very in character and very in line with who God said that he is, who God said that he is, not who Zamyar and Debak said that he is, right? Uh-huh. So that's what the whole lesson is about. If y'all got some questions, I'm here.
Yeah. If you got any questions, comments, or any ideas of class you want the brother to do, man, go ahead and put it in the chat.
All praise to the Most High too for y'all patience, and y'all sticking it out with us. I appreciate y'all.
Also, Gaming 4, boy, you better stop, boy. Calling me a little G.
Who did that?
Gaming 4. Calling me a little G, man. We're gonna make you go get your big homies. Nah, man, it's all love, man. I got love for the brothers, man. Matter of fact, man, shout out to the brothers in Genesis, man.
No doubt. I ain't got them. Listen, you call me whatever you want to call me, man. We about trying to do this work, man. Yeah. And again, if you want to say that I'm not on the same level with brothers who taught me, that's okay. That's understandable. You know what I'm saying? If you want to say I'm not on the same level with brothers who got a good 5, 6, 7 years over me in the truth, okay, that's understandable. Let me get to that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the hum. I knew it was the hum. Yeah. It's the hum, man. He be with Hassan out there in North Carolina. Shout out to North Carolina, bro.
God.
Lisa Who put good job, Zeke. Very edifying lesson.
All praise.
Oh yeah. Well, all right, Daham. If I'm a little G, then what you is, bro?
Right.
If I'm the little G, what you is?
What time your class come on every week? Let us check you out.
Yeah. They trying to see when we come into Charlotte. My brother, hey man, somebody might be in Charlotte very soon, man.
No, look, I'm being in Charlotte on Sunday.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, somebody gonna be in Charlotte very soon.
Y'all come get up with me, shit.
Big Brute put always edification, man. That's right. He's always edifying, man.
All praise.
All praises.
Yeah, and y'all forgive me for no lesson last week, but I was on the road, So I'm here this week, and I'm definitely put something together for next week before I leave back out next week.
Yeah. Sooner or later, I'm gonna start doing back classes, man. I know I've been lacking on the classes, man. I gotta apologize, but I'm gonna get back on the classes.
All right, come.
I've just been letting my brother get in this groove before I start getting on the classes.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I need all the time I can get.
Yeah. He said that's Daham. He said that's a bet we're gonna tap in with you on Sunday. I know. I talked to Asad last night, man. Asad was he's trying to get me to go to North Carolina. I said,
right. I know Asad gonna pull up in Durham. I'll be in Durham the next week. But he was saying he might pull up in Charlotte, but I know I'm gonna see him in Durham. But either way it go.
Yeah. Lisa, who put when you coming to Chicago?
You know what, Lisa? We working that out now. We just on the first leg because my brother needed some time to kind of get back acclimated, being off for so long. So we just did the first 9 dates. They putting on the next, I want to say like 30 something, probably like late spring, early summer. We'll be coming back around that way.
Yeah. So just keep in touch, keep tapped in. Y'all know. Nelf the Kingdom put through the spirit and power always. Leave here edified, kings, the water, and all praises to the Most High.
All praises, Nelf. Shout out to Big Brew up there too, man.
We'll give it a few more seconds or a few more minutes before we call it. Like we greatly appreciate the thanks. Because it ain't easy putting these lessons together, man. That's very time consuming to put a lesson together, man.
No doubt.
So people, the congratulations or the thank yous, man, brothers really appreciate it, and the brother put in time to do it.
No doubt. Hey, all praise to the Most High for being able to understand it enough to do it. That's what the thing that I'm the most grateful for is that, when I was younger and tried to read this book, I had no clue what 98% of it was saying. To be able to pick it up on any given day now and read it and be able to put some stuff together that can actually edify somebody, that's a blessing in itself, man. Like 1,000%, all praise to the Most High.
Yeah. Like I remember when I was in the world, I couldn't understand it. I couldn't even get past the first couple chapters. I'm like, man, what is it talking
about? For real.
But now to be able to read it and be able to break it down, all praises to the Most High.
God. He said, "Can we get one of the I can't say that word too good. Man, how you say that? Pseudepigraphal. Man, you got it. I can't say that one.
Bro. I don't know. I can't.
Pseudepigraphal books. Like, give me an example, bro.
Yeah, what's the example? She said definitely we need Saturday classes. Yeah, I know y'all been lacking on the Saturday class, man. I knew somebody else was doing the Saturday class. That's why I left it be. But I see, man, they need the Saturday classes back. Somebody I might have spelled that B wrong. Big Brew.
It's all good because I can barely say it either way, whatever it's gonna be. But just give me an example of the books though, like you know what I mean? I think I know what he's saying though.
I think he meant to say pseudepigraphal.
Right, exactly. Pseudepigraphal. No, it's something like that though.
Pseudo just means fake.
Right.
I mean, like the book of Thomas, Adam, and Eve. Yeah, all that is fake books, bro.
Right. That's why we don't spend time in it. But I mean, I get it. Maybe we could take one of them and break down some of the discrepancies in one of them. I feel you. You know.
Yeah, Enoch, Enoch. Like if you believe in the book,
there you go. Pseudepigraphal. That's kind of
yeah. Pseudo. Whenever somebody say pseudo, it means fake.
Right.
So, like the book of Enoch, like if you believe in Enoch, then you believe in 400-foot giants.
Giants, right.
And then you believe in mermaids. Like, so once you dive in them books, man, it gets crazy.
Right. And that's the thing too, is that I was always taught that unless a brother is like really strong in their faith, like I wouldn't want to be responsible for somebody even taking anything from that unless you're really grounded and strong in your faith to understand that it's a bunch of nonsense. You know what I'm saying? So it's something you kind of got to be careful with too. But I figure though, you know, maybe taking a couple chapters of one of these books and showing you how ridiculous it is, that could be edifying. You know what I'm saying?
Like I could go into it. Like when you get in the book of Jubilees, it calls our forefather Abraham how can I say it? A PDF file, right?
Right.
But when you read, like they say he got with her when he was like 30 or something like that, and she's like 14 or some crazy stuff like that. But when you read the Bible, he's actually 10 years older than Sarah.
Right.
Because Abraham had it says she had Isaac when she was 90 and Abraham was 100. So it gives you the time frames on how old they are right there.
Right. I mean, it's so many, you know. I remember one day Deacon went into what was it? It was I want to say the book of I can't remember what it was, but he read like half a chapter and you could see just the ridiculous nature of it. Like, but again, I think it's just something that you got to be careful of unless you really grounded in this, to not even play with certain things. You don't even want it to seep in your head at all until you know that you really, you know, standing 10 toes down on this whole thing. Man.
Yeah, master the 80 books, man, before you start diving in that.
Right.
And I'm gonna tell you like this: you ain't finna even master the 80 books like that, bro.
No matter how much time you put in, bro. That's a fact.
So diving in the Book of Thomas, Jubilees,
Book of Thomas, right. Yeah.
What's this master the 80 books we got, bro?
Right. God. Hey, DHM Gaming, hey, we love you back, bro.
Yeah, of course, Dahama, man. You already know. I remember Hassan used to always say this: "We're in cahoots." We're in cahoots, bro.
No,
I got nothing but love for y'all, bros, man.
Thanks.
Man, it don't look like I got much to say, man. So with that, I'm gonna give all honor and glory to Yahweh by Shema Mashiach Yahweh Shai. Shalom, family.
Shalom.